So today we're going to show you guys our first Hugel Mound ever. This is it. Definitely could have went bigger, but I was just using the space that I had available and trying to get rid of some of the things that I could use. Build up some soil, make a nice Hugel Mound. So we'll be doing more of them. I've got another one started and another one planned. This is the first one, and I'll just kind of show you guys what we did and how we did it. Alright guys, Papa Pepper back again. At the moment, you may notice that a lot of the things we're doing are experiments. I think that life is an experience, but it's also a series of experiments. And as we transition from just living a consumer life in the city, where we're very dependent upon others around us for everything we need, as we try to live a richer, more connected life, where we're being more self-sufficient and taking care of our own needs, it's a constant series of experiments, from using raised beds, trying different forms of animal husbandry, to growing different plants, for being a couple zones removed from the old zone we used to grow in. It's all just kind of hypothetical, it's all an experiment for us. Even though others have gone before us and done a lot of these things, when it comes to us applying them, we don't know how it's going to work for us. Just planted some potatoes the other day, without digging in the earth. I just set them on top and then covered them with some mulch. We're moving towards kind of a back to Eden, no-till type gardening style, and now I'm actually going to be building my first Hugel Mound. So as we kind of head through this area of our property, and as we try to grow food, and as we look at our resources and how to use them, obviously we've got a lot of rocks. Those are things we can put to use. I get free mulch not too far from here. We're using a lot of the stuff that we have available to live a wiser, more intentional life. And let's talk about permaculture in general, and then kind of the fact that permaculture's really adopted a lot of stuff like Hugel Mounds. We have an opportunity here to really get a lot of information and a lot of stuff ahead of time, and that's what we're in the process of doing, and then applying it and seeing how it works for us and tweaking things. I guess Hugel Mounds kind of started where people had a lot of wood available and not the best soil, and where they weren't wanting to burn the wood. So they began to make these mounds of the wood mixed in with some different organic material, and over time it would decompose and it would turn into some really rich soil. Here we don't have very good soil. That's part of the reason we're doing raised beds. We also have a lot of wood. Some of the wood is stuff we'll use to heat our house and to cook on and other things eventually. But a lot of it is either going to be chipper shredded and we'll make our own mulch, or some of it's already kind of decomposing already. I'm going to get some stuff that's decomposing already, some branches. We've also got a lot of straw we've been using as animal bedding, so that's been very saturated with things like urine, which is high in nitrogen, and then also a lot of the manure from the sheep, the goats, creatures like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a bunch of layers here, make a big old mound. This one's actually running from north to south, so the faces of it are going to be from east to west. We are on a gentle slope, and I may put in some swales on my property eventually to help with just water retention, but I don't personally want to combine swales with Hugel Mounds, because a Hugel Mound can really soak up a lot of water, and that can become a very heavy thing, and if it's on enough of a slope, it could cause some landslides. So that's part of the reason I'm designing my garden and the raised beds the way that they are, and rather than just kind of having a series where you can get a good straight line of water coming down the downward slope, I'm staggering things so that they don't, the water can't build up speed, that it'll be soaking in. And then with this Hugel Mound, it's going to help with some things anyway, like building up some good soil. Also, as things decompose and kind of start to process in there, it's going to be adding heat, which will be a good thing, especially through the winter. It'll also help with water retention, and it'll give me an opportunity to use a lot of the things like the wood that I just don't want to just burn for the sake of burning it, or like some of the animal byproducts that we have as well with the manure and stuff like that. So I'm gonna layer some stuff in here, Now we're gonna get going, gonna do my first Hugel Mound, and then I'm actually gonna do one running east to west, so it'll have a south side and a north side. And I'm thinking for that one, I'm actually gonna put a window in. I'm actually gonna take a pane of glass, put it in, put things tight to it, and we can actually watch that kind of go over time. And one thing I want to do is to learn myself, document it from others. Others can certainly learn from my mistakes, but then also from anything that works well for me, and then have things on site that I already had somebody from Kentucky who comes to the state periodically say, hey, next time I'm in the state, can I come just check out your garden? I'm like, well, you know, my garden's less than a year old. I really am just kind of winging things, and whatever makes sense to me is what I'm doing. But yeah, sure, if you want to come, you know, come check it out. So we get building my first Hugel Mound ever, and we'll see how it works in the long term. So I do got plenty of logs that have just been cut to a manageable size, which we're going to be saving for firewood. And then we also got a lot of branches that we've got piled up a couple different places, but these are kind of packed away, and there's a lot of things I'm still working on, like everything behind me, where there's all sorts of stuff in various portions of my land on what used to be the forest floor that I'm going to be picking up and actually putting in the Hugel Mound. Plus, recently I've spent some time collecting some pretty good things I think are going to help. So here I've got a whole trailer load of wood that's already rotting and decomposing. You know, it's breaking apart. Like I said, this is stuff I'm not going to want to burn. Anything that's brand new and still good, I'm going to want to save to use as firewood. But it's already decomposing. This is what keeps the forest alive, is things like the rotting wood, things like the annuals that sprout up and die, and then also the leaf litter that falls. So if you look at a lot of places, some of your richest soil often is going to be on the forest floor. So this is a way to kind of recreate this in the garden by gathering the leaves, gathering the rotting wood and stuff, and adding in a couple other things to really make a good, healthy, rich soil. And these are pretty light and dry right now. It hasn't rained much lately, but when it does, especially when they're all buried in a mound, it'll soak up a lot of water. You'll need to use less water for your plants, which is going to be excellent. And then, like I said, too, throughout the winter, is that kind of, it's going to be cooking, kind of like a compost pile would. So it's going to be generating heat, and I should be able to kind of extend the growing season of whatever I happen to plant in there. So I'm going to hook this up to the truck and pull this right around up by the garden area and get stacking. You know, slight change of plans. I was walking around and I'm seeing all these just regular sticks on my way to the truck. I think I'm going to add a layer of these to the top because I'm going to put just some raw, regular, fresh sticks to begin with, then put that wood on top of it, then add a layer probably of straw with manure in it and stuff from the quail or the chickens or the sheep or the goats or something like that. Then add some leaves, probably put down another layer of sticks, and just kind of build up for a while. There's all sorts of different recipes or, you know, things you can get of how people suggest making them. Like I said, I'm just gonna kind of experiment. I'll document what I do. If it works good for me, good. If it doesn't, I'll do something else next time. But this is a way for me to take a lot of the stuff I got to clean up anyway and give it one place to be for the rest of my life, where it's going to benefit, where I'll never have to pick up the stick again because I'll stick it in that Hugel Mound. We'll have it be buried and it'll be there and building down and breaking soil. So that's what I'm going to do at the moment. So along with my other list of things to do, I want to actually run a rock wall between that pasture, which is our southern pasture, and the garden up here. Thinking about how to do it, but I also wanted to wait until I built my Hugel Mounds because there's about 30 feet of garden already that way from my turnaround in the garden area, where I actually have a drive-through that I can drive into the garden area and back out. But these are in the pretty much southwest corner of the garden is where I'm putting in these two Hugel Mounds, and I can drive into my south pasture here. That's our senior pasture. The north pasture is going to be the associate pasture, but I can pull this right up, and here's where I'm going with it. So pretty good, way to go. I like it. Like I said, I'm gonna put down some of the raw stuff first, the stuff that's fresher. Then I'm gonna put the more decomposed and breaking down rotting wood on top of it, and then I'll start adding some other things on top of that. But before I do that, I may actually throw down a layer of leaves first, So like I said, I'm just gonna stagger it, pretty much build a big old thing eventually, and I'll be able to plant in both sides of it. And then if I was farther north too, back up in Wisconsin, Canada, anywhere across the northern part there, I would probably make sure all my Hugel Mounds were north to south. Sorry, where they had north side and the south side, they ran east to west. But this one I'm trying this way, the other one I'm trying, you know, that way. This will be running north to south with the east and west side. In the summer, you know, the sun is pretty much almost, it's not directly overhead, but it's pretty good where I'm not really gonna have one side getting more sun than the other. In the winter it'll be different, but we'll just kind of see how it works. And again, like I said, I'm just experimenting here. So I'm gonna start building this thing and see how far we get today. And the cool thing too is by running a rock layer around it, as it gets deeper, I can, you know, build it up some more with extra rocks just to kind of hold it in place too, because I've got those available and they're free. So to start the Hugel Mound off, I used a bunch of leaf litter that we had first, followed by a bunch of branches. And these were the fresh branches that were cut off a number of trees we were pruning. Some of the trees that we chopped down, these had not really started to decompose yet, but I was putting them pretty much at the surface contact with the actual ground on top of the leaf litter. And then I added a bit of the soiled straw that we used in our duck poultry pen. So it was covered in manure, and then another layer of leaf litter before I started adding some of the more decomposing logs. So we've got a lot of these on the forest floor. This is part of what makes the forest floor such good soil as well, just the decomposing leaf litter and then the rotting logs. So added that now, and as you can tell, I'm kind of spacing out the layers, adding a little bit of this, a little bit of that, just using up a bunch of the resources that we have in excess on our property. And then another layer of leaf litter, followed by some of the, I believe this was the stuff from the goat pens. So we also have manure mixed with soiled straw from our goat pens, and then alternating that with more of the rotting logs. So over time, this will continue to break down into really rich soil. It'll retain water, and it'll also add heat as it breaks down, give the plants I plant on the top of it a good medium to grow in. And ideally I would make these longer, but I'm just going to fill in some of the spaces I have in the garden as a test, kind of as I begin to use this up, use the spaces I got. So then this was actually the goat stuff. The previous one was from the chickens or the poultry, and add another layer of that. You can tell I'm kind of tapering it off to build up the mound to actually the middle of this whole thing. There's so much of this wood on my property that I don't just want to burn and turn into ash. A lot of it's either too small or too kind of rotten to use for firewood, so this is a good way to put it to a use on the property as well. So it was, of course, quite a bit of work to do, but I plan on having it pay off in years to come. And then just to hold everything in place, I drove a number of sticks at an angle just to tie it in, and then began adding some topsoil and compost in different layers too, packing it down as I went. So as long as all this stuff is buried and beginning to kind of decompose, break down, and I cover it in a nice layer of topsoil and compost, I'll be able to plant directly into it. Doing more shaping now, adding more topsoil to the top, and then I added an extra layer of rocks around the base just to kind of hold it in place. Got a lot of large rocks in the property anyway, and then packing it in with some wet topsoil, so I was able to kind of use it like you would with clay or mud to kind of smear it into place and let the moisture kind of hold it in place as well. So at this point I'm really preparing to plant, covering it up with just a good layer of topsoil and finishing the rock work around the outside then too as I go. So once I had a good layer of all of this around it, I was really just getting ready to plant. I decided to take a variety of seeds that would kind of dig down into it and hold it together.
things like daikon radish, carrots as well, some turnips, kale, and then as time progresses, I'll sow some perennials in it too. But at the moment, I just sprinkled some stuff that would sprout up rather quick, hold it in place, covered it with another layer of straw, and then you can see I'm taking thin sticks and bamboo, laying them across parallel to the ground to hold the straw in place, and then using forked sticks, driving them at an angle to hold those long parallel bamboos and sticks in place, just to kind of tie it together. Those can stay in there, they can rot, they can fall apart in time, but it holds that protective layering of some old straw I had, which was part of our winter cold frame. Hold that in place to protect it, keep the moisture underneath, allow the seeds to sprout up through it.
So this is our first Hugel mound. It'll take a while for it to break down completely. We've definitely got some good layers of stuff in between there. A lot of wood and stuff that we didn't want to burn, but wasn't going to use as firewood. We've got some good layers of different stuff saturated with manure. We've got some good layers of various soil and organic material and compost in there too. And then we did seed it. I put in some daikon radishes, some carrots, some kale, some turnips. Trying to think of what else I put in there. But we're just gonna get some stuff kind of growing up this year and some roots down in there holding it together. And then I can definitely plant, some berry bushes or other things or stuff in it in years to come. Eventually I'll probably plant some maybe perennials at the top and then sow the sides with different things. But you'll notice too, I used some bamboo and some sticks to kind of nail it together. Covered it with a layer of old straw that we had. The stuff was very moist. I'll still give this a water just to get it started. But those seeds should be able to germinate underneath there. Everything should be pretty much held in place, and over time, this will shrink and break down too. But just experimenting, trying out for ourselves, something I wanted to do for a bit, and finally decided, you know what, we're gonna go ahead and do it. So, first Hugel mound. The next one's actually gonna have a window in it, is the plan, so we'll be able to watch from the side as it decomposes over the years, which I think will be really cool. Give us a little inside scoop of what's actually going on beneath the soil and how it's working, and maybe even see some of the roots and different things too. But that's it. Stay tuned. We'll let you see how it works throughout the summer. Papa out.
As always, I'm Papa Pepper, and I'd like to remind you, don't post for free. If you'd like to be part of a revolution in social media, an economic power to the people where users can actually blog for cryptocurrency, then I'd recommend that you check out steemit.com and join the revolution. Papa out.